It is March 17th, 2022. This is Christopher John Bjerknes. I literally wrote the book on Putin's reign of terror in 2017. I predicted in 2014 that Putin would attempt to reconstitute the Soviet Union by invading all of Ukraine and would try to spark World War III. I was the first to expose the fact that the alt-media and the alt-right are fronts for Russia, Israel, and Red China, as is today abundantly clear. I predicted that the communist-controlled alt-right would engage in street battles with the Communist Front organization Antifa. My predictions proved correct in Charlottesville shortly after my book was published, and again during the street battles of 2020, which were meant to destabilize America in preparation for Putin's attack on Ukraine. Just as I had been predicting, I am, therefore, the most qualified person in the world to talk about Putin's unprovoked aggression in Ukraine and the outrageous response to it, which has occurred in the communist-controlled alt-media and among the Trotskyite Republicans and the crypto-communist libertarians. I have been warning that the Republican Party has been subverted by Zionists and communists for decades. The Republicans are apologists for Russia. The Democrats are in bed with Red China. I have been sounding the alarm that the Libertarian Party is a Russian front party, which has been attempting to undermine confidence in the American dollar and serve as apologists for Russian aggression, while promoting a non-interventionist and isolationist policy in the United States, which favors the international communists, in particular the Russian Soviets and the Red Chinese. The Communist Libertarians and the Communist Greens also act as spoiler candidates who help to elect the anti-NATO Jewish puppet Donald Trump and the Marxist Barack Obama, who did nothing when Putin annexed Crimea in 2014. I have been the most vocal advocate for NATO and have been shouting to the world that the only thing keeping Russia from throwing nuclear bombs at us is our own nuclear arsenal and NATO. I warned about Medvedev and Chuck Hagel and their efforts to remove our nuclear arsenal. And I sounded the alarm that this was a Russian subversion and that Russia is preparing for a nuclear strike against the West. All of my predictions and analysis of these matters have proven to have been 100% correct. If people had heeded the warnings I issued, we would not today be facing the imminent threat of nuclear war that the Jewish puppet Vladimir Putin has made against us. If instead of banning my book, our institutions had followed my recommendations and adopted my views, we could have defeated Putin long ago. Therein lies the danger of the rampant censorship and the communist control of mainstream media and alt-media that I have been loudly decrying for many decades. Jewry has a long and bloody history in Ukraine and is behind the current crisis, as is proven by Israel's support for Putin and Israel's demand that Ukraine surrender to Russia. Ashkenazi Jews largely descend from the Europeans and the Khazars who lived in parts of the Ukraine and adjacent regions. The Varangian Vikings, known as the Rus, approached their domain. The Lithuanian Kingdom and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth ruled much of the territory of the Ukraine. The Ashkenazi Jews have a long history of genocidal hatred toward the Northern Europeans and Slavs. Karl Marx openly called for the genocide of Slavic peoples. The Jewish bankers were quite powerful in these empires. This inspired a great deal of resentment against the Jewish usurers. Bohdan Khmelnytsky massacred large numbers of Jews in the mid-1600s in retaliation for their exploitation of Ukrainians and support of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Jewry has set about to avenge this massacre by repeatedly committing genocide against the Ukrainians and by enslaving the Ukrainians ever since. Shabbatai Tsevi asserted that the massacres had redeemed Jewry and that they heralded the beginnings of the Messianic era. The Jews gained power over the Ukrainians in the Soviet Union. The Jews Lazar Kaganovich and Gangrik Yagoda committed the genocide of 10 to 15 million Ukrainians, which is known as the Holodomor. Stalin engaged in massive population transfers, which deported native Ukrainians and transplanted Russian populations into the country of Ukraine to destabilize it and serve as a permanent pretext for future wars as part of the communist policy of permanent war and permanent revolution. The Tartars of Crimea were mass murdered, and those who survived the massacres were forced out to Central Asia. Stalin was married to Lazar Kaganovich's sister, Rosa Kaganovich. The Bolshevik Nazis betrayed the Ukrainians and Stepan Bandera for the benefit of the Jews and Soviets. The Nazis and Soviets mass murdered millions more Ukrainians. Shortly before the fake fall of the Soviet Union, the eternal enemies of the Ukrainians transformed the Chernobyl nuclear power plant into a massive dirty bomb. They irradiated the Ukrainian people and poisoned their environment. Shortly after the staged breakup of the Soviet Union, the Israelis began to enslave Ukrainian girls and rape them in Israeli brothels. The Russian oligarchs dominated and exploited the nation. The breakup of the Soviet Union was a staged subversion of the West, just like Lenin's new economic policy. In 2014, Putin perpetrated a fake coup in Ukraine. Putin had a long history of lying and deliberately instigating wars. The Jewish oligarchs, including Boris Berezovsky, had put Putin in power and insisted that he perpetrate false flag apartment bombings to serve as a bogus pretext for a Russian war on the Chechens. Putin's rabbi is Chabadnik Berel Lazar. Trump rose to power with the assistance of Russian propaganda and attempted to destroy NATO, which benefited Russia. Trump is connected to Chabad Lubavitch through his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and has had lifelong relationships with prominent Jews and is very popular in Israel. I was the first to expose the Chabad Lubavitch connection to the troika of Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, and Benjamin Netanyahu. The East German Jew Angela Merkel helped Putin to undermine Germany and NATO and to destroy the homogeneity of German society by inviting in large numbers of immigrants. Willy Brandt was a communist agent. Gerhard Schroeder sold Germany out to Russia. I have been warning about these things for a decade, and instead of being handed a megaphone, I have been routinely censored and publicly smeared. Jens Stoltenberg is presently in charge of NATO and has discouraged the needed response to Russia's aggression and failed to respond to the Chinese bioweapons attack of COVID-19. Stoltenberg was a communist who threw rocks at the American embassy and was known by the KGB codename Steklov. His sister was a member of the Marxist-Leninist Red Youth. Stoltenberg is slated to change jobs from Secretary General of NATO to governorship of Norway's central bank, which is a very Jewish institution. This serves as proof of the disputed connection between the bankers and the communists. David Ben-Gurion predicted that the Eurasian communists would take over all of Europe. The Jews ordered Putin to invade Ukraine at this time in order to fulfill that very old Leninist plan, bring down the Atlanticists of the United States and the United Kingdom, and spark World War III. The communists first weakened the West with the Chinese bioweapon COVID-19 and mass influence campaigns meant to demoralize Westerners and inspire them to hate themselves and glorify the Red Chinese and Soviet Russians. Putin and Dugin have long been trying to drive wedges into NATO and subvert the alliance. Trump, Corbyn, and Le Pen assisted them in this effort. The libertarians in America, Syriza and Golden Dawn in Greece, and the Turkish Marxists have all sought to subvert NATO for the benefit of Russia. I have been warning about this dangerous subversion for more than a decade. Instead of amplifying my voice, our institutions of power have largely silenced me. Fortunately, Putin's ineptitude has scuttled his efforts to destroy NATO. As I said before the conflict commenced, NATO could quite easily destroy the Russian military. Instead, they are attempting to limit the Ukrainians' defenses on the pretext that the war in Ukraine serves a useful purpose and will bog down Putin in a quagmire and limit the risk that he will throw nuclear bombs at us. The Ukrainians, against all the expectations of NATO, have been able to resist Putin's war machine and are beginning to destroy it. Let us hope that they are successful. If Putin is defeated and removed from office, Russia will be balkanized. Poland or Lithuania will likely take Kaliningrad. China will take all of Siberia and a large swath of territory leading to Europe. Belarus will probably become an international territory dominated by the Chinese. China is now maneuvering to take over Russia. The Jews and communists are quite content to sponsor this move. They hate Russians almost as much as they hate Ukrainians. If the cornered rat, Vladimir Putin, employs biological, chemical, or nuclear weapons of mass destruction, public opinion will force NATO to directly attack the Russian forces in Ukraine. The Russian nuclear arsenal is large, but in very poor condition. If the Jews order Putin to instigate a nuclear war, several European cities, especially Rome, Kiev, Berlin, Warsaw, London, Paris, etc., may be targeted, and perhaps many American cities as well. Russia will certainly be annihilated. We should be maximizing our missile and air defenses and preparing for the possibility of a first strike, which is now our prerogative, given that Putin has threatened us with nuclear war. There ought to be formal plans and forces in place to annihilate Putin's stronghold with lightning attacks. We should be positioning our forces to the east and northwest of Russia and in Turkey, surrounding Russia and attacking it from multiple fronts, not simply from the Ukraine. We should be building up anti-missile and air defenses for Europe and Japan, which they should pay for. It would be unwise to position too many forces in easy striking range of Russia's nuclear weapons. We should maintain a large reserve of our defenses for potential use against Red China and North Korea. China would delight in a war in which Russia and NATO mutually consumed one another. NATO should be planning for an operation to hit Russia from every angle all at once and not focus primarily on Ukraine, but on destroying the interior of the country, given Putin's threat to use weapons of mass destruction against us. That is our primary concern, and we should have plans in place to defeat Putin's ability to strike us from within Russia and with submarines. Jewry created the system of mutually assured destruction, which endangers all of us. Jewry put Putin in power, created the Soviet Union and Red China, and armed the Soviet Union with nuclear weapons. Jewry hates Ukrainians and the West. Israel is siding with Soviet Russia and Red China against us. The Jewish bankers could have and should have shut Putin down in 2014 when he invaded Crimea. Instead, they have helped finance Putin's war machine and have enabled the rise of Red China and brought about the decline of the West. It is now abundantly clear that China attacked us with COVID-19 in preparation for Russia's attack on Ukraine and China's threatened invasion of Taiwan. We need to elect politicians from a new political angle who are not Democrats in bed with China or Trotskyite Republicans. If we succeed in that effort, we will have an easy time defeating the Jewish bankers who are supporting Putin and Red China so that they annihilate us. I wish people had listened to me. We could have prevented this mess if we had worked together. I provided the facts and analysis which foretold everything that is happening today. I pleaded for help to prevent what is happening now. Not a single person helped me. We need to hold Jewry accountable for bringing us to the brink of nuclear war. That will put tremendous pressure on the Jews to stop Putin instead of ordering him to attack us with nuclear bombs. We must never yield to Putin's threats. We must destroy his armies and disarm Russia's nuclear forces forever and put an end to the Jews' system of mutually assured destruction. But we should not allow China to profit from the fall of Russia. China has been waging war on us ever since the Jews turned it into a communist nation. China launched a biological warfare attack on us in preparation for Putin's attack on the Ukraine and China's planned attack on Taiwan. Our subverted leadership has done nothing in response. We must destroy Russian, Israeli, and Chinese power with all the forces at our disposal before they destroy us, as they have each openly and repeatedly threatened to do. It will be easy if we can put in place leadership who will favor our interest instead of theirs. I once again ask for your help to actually do something about all of this, instead of merely complaining about it and leaving our fate in the hands of Jewish bankers who want to kill us. I would like to start streaming on Odyssey. It would be very helpful if you would contribute to my efforts by watching, posting, and spreading the word. I also need funding. If you can contribute, please do. You have no idea what I have sacrificed to fight this fight alone for 25 years. You now know with absolute certainty that I have been right all along. You can help yourself and your family by helping me to lead this campaign. The Ukrainians serve as a magnificent example of what we can achieve if we actually do something more than just talk to defend ourselves, our loved ones, and our nations. The Jews are desperate to prevent the Ukrainians from defeating the Russians. The Jews created the system of mutually assured destruction, which they aim at us to divide humanity against itself and empower them. It will be a major blow against Jewry if we can destroy their grip on Russia, or at least remove the Soviet-Russian threat. That is why all the usual traitorous suspects are cheerleading for Vladimir Putin, because he represents the Jewish bankers and their quest to murder us and our families. It is no coincidence that they and Israel are on the same side against the Ukrainians, NATO, and the West. They are on the Soviet-Russian side, and they want to maintain Soviet Russia's nuclear arsenal and employ it against us.